Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/getstarted. That's GREENLIGHT.com/getstarted.
So then the multiverse, which is caused by Wanda's powers, is going to bring in the TVP. Bam, that'll be Wanda, and then Doctor Strange, and then Loki. They're all there.
It just sounds super bad and boring.
I know, it is. It is, and it's going to be.
Really bad.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Clear!
Hey, Tom. Hey, Cecil. What's with the army guys?
Ooh,
what's happening?
Ooh, are we finally doing a gangbang? Because you guys need to tell me. I am not trapped. All right, give me a second.
I can't imagine
no, Eli, no, Eli,
no.
Keith, these are the Navy SEALs.
Okay, why are there Navy SEALs in the studio?
Okay, so you know this week's episode, right? The Invasion of Grenada.
Okay, mouth is stretched. Who is first?
Yeah, okay, so how does this relate to Grenada?
So we're thinking it might help prevent that kind of thing in the future if we just, occasionally let the Navy SEALs invade the studio.
You, Mr. Frowny Face. You first. Mouth is stretched. Want some of this?
Just ignore him.
Yeah, they kick in the door, we surrender. Happens every couple of months. Just keeps everybody happy.
Okay.
No
cool.
takers. Okay, then I guess I'm going to choose. Eeny, meeny, miny.
Eli!
Catch.
The Navy SEALs are here for military stuff. They are definitively not here to fuck you.
Okay, that might not be what they came here for, Cecil, but that is what they are doing now.
And there they go. They're gone.
Oof.
Sure.
Cowards.
Yikes. Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we are experts. Because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Cecil, and I'll be commanding this invasion, but I need my chiefs of staff. So here they are, General Contractor, General Relativity, and General Hospital, Tom, Keith, and Eli.
Okay, the other option was to be a subcontractor, and that's just not how I play.
You're a Dom Contractor.
Math is my one. I'm math.
Okay.
General
Question.
relativity.
When people fuck on those hospital shows, it seems like they wouldn't have time to grab a condom. So, are they raw dogging it? These are the questions shows don't
That
answer.
nobody's asking.
All right. Patrons.
I'm asking.
Cecil, you're the MC. Do you have it all squared
Patron.
away?
Oh!
Relativity.
Do you wear condoms?
You got it. You got it. Patrons, your generosity keeps us flushing MREs, and we salute you. If you'd like to learn how to sign up for the Citation Needed Patron Army, be sure to stick around till the end of the show. With that out of the way, Eli, tell us what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
Well, Cecil, at the suggestion of patron Dan Izabri, we'll be talking about the U.S.
Crushed it.
Sure, maybe that.
Crushed
We'll
it.
be talking about the U.S. invasion of Grenada.
We're all going to mispronounce it.
Really not that hard.
Is it Grenada, Grenada? Which one is it? Which one?
Pretty sure it's Grenada.
It's Grenada, yeah.
Well, I was the
And
first to get it wrong.
It's not what Eli said.
And
Grenada or Grenada, I will accept.
so, Tom, you're going to read something Noah wrote for you. Are you ready to have to sigh it yourself?
Quack.
So, Tom, what was the invasion of Grenada?
So, Grenada.
Grenada.
Tom, it's a Noah essay.
All right. So, first, a little background.
That's more like it. Yeah.
There it is.
Grenada is an island nation. Fuck. Okay. Okay. All right. I promised him. Grenada is an island nation about 100 miles north of Venezuela. It's actually the 11th smallest sovereign nation, and that's on a list that counts shit like Vatican City and Monaco. The whole country is about 135 square miles. So if it was an American city, it would be the 69th biggest, right between Philadelphia and Vegas. If we measured it by population, it wouldn't even make the top 250. To be clear, it is a tiny, tiny place. The history of the island begins in Pliocene epoch, where a bunch of submarine volcanoes spewed out huge piles of earth sperm for a few 100,000 years. All the volcanoes in the area are extinct today with one exception, and its awesome name is the only reason I bring up the island's origins at all. That and Noah is quite literally making me read this. I wouldn't start with the geological origins. Anyway, a few miles north of the Grenadian coast, there's an active submarine volcano called Kickham, Jenny, which is rated 4.3 stars out of 5 on Google Maps, despite being 600 miles below the ocean's surface.
Okay, I actually looked into this. That score would be a lot higher if you don't count multiple people who said, quote, too wet, 1 star.
I saw that.
Wait,
saw
Ben
that.
Shapiro?
Hey, naming people, pro tip, don't give your volcanoes cutesy names because they all erupt eventually and murder people. And the only thing that you can control in there is how often the news has to talk about the devastation and loss caused by the Boopsie Doopsie volcano. So just do it something normal.
Anyway, the island is first inhabited about 3,600 years ago when native South Americans made their way across the 100 miles or so of open ocean between there and Venezuela, but doesn't show up in written history until 1498, when Christopher Columbus spots it during his third voyage to the New World. He never actually landed there, but that didn't stop him from naming it. He called it La Concepcion, and although that was a reference to the Virgin Mary, it's still kind of like naming it the Island of Fucked, so the name didn't stick. A later map by America's namesake, Amerigo Vespucci, had the island marked with the name Mayo. But in the 1520s, some Spanish maps started using the name Grenada, which became La Grenade when the French colonized it in 1649. And then Grenada when the British took it from them at the end of the 7 Years' War.
Christopher Columbus just going island to island doing drive-bys with flag javelins, just dibs in everything.
So, Tom, what you're saying is that the Spanish couldn't hold the Mayo?
Oh, what? Are we letting Eli do puns now? Didn't we have a moratorium on this?
Cecil's got it. It's mine.
Nailed it.
Unacceptable. Just delete him. So for the next 150 years, Grenada remains a British colony until a radical Grenadian politician with the spectacular name of Theophilus Albert Maryshow started to agitate for more local power in the island's governance. This led to a series of concessions by the British government aimed at finding out just how little they could offer the natives to get them to calm the fuck down. So like in the 1920s, the Crown Colony was governed by a 15-man legislative council. And the Crown's big concession was to allow the locals to elect 5 of those 15 members. And if that sounds overly generous to you, don't worry. They restricted the vote to only the island's wealthiest individuals, of course. In all, they gave this damn near symbolic vote to less than 4% of the populace.
Oh no, glad that doesn't happen anymore.
And none of them were allowed to vote on Sunday.
Yeah.
Still, the juggernaut of independence was rolling, and in 1951, they held their first general election on the basis of universal adult suffrage. By 1974, they were granted independence. Ultimately, they opted to remain a member of the British Commonwealth. So technically, Queen Elizabeth remained their monarch, and she was represented by a local governor-general appointed by the Crown. But for all intents and purposes, Grenada would be self-governing from that point forward.
Well, except for the swans. They did not own their swans. And I feel like that's going to fester. I feel like that's going to cause a problem coming up.
Grenada's first prime minister was a labor agitator named Eric Gary. Gary was the founder of the Grenada United Labor Party. And yes, they used the acronym GULP, which started as a labor union and eventually became the island's dominant political party.
The
Gary
big
was
gulp conspiracy right there.
Gary was already serving as
Big
the
gulp.
premier at the time. So after a quick change of title and a bit of updated stationery, he became the newly independent nation's first prime minister.
Okay, sorry, Prime Minister, what do you mean the entire country is on its 15? How can a whole country... You know, it's fine. It's fine.
Of course, the British Empire generally didn't leave newly independent colonies in great shape to thrive under self-rule, especially not when those countries were full of people of color. The early years of independence weren't great for the average citizen, So opposition parties started to thrive over the next couple of years. His main opposition was a Marxist-Leninist party called the New Jewel Movement, or NJM, led by a revolutionary named Maurice Bishop. In 1976, the two went toe-to-toe in the general election. And at the end, Gary claimed victory, but the NJM refused to accept the results. Can you imagine it? The
That would be a
loser of an
disaster.
election refusing to concede.
Huh.
Just let it sink in. Just going to give it a minute. Just take some time.
They
with it,
needed a
guys.
pillow guy in Grenada.
So in the wake of the contested election, you end up with violent clashes between the NJM and Gary's private army, the Mongoose Gang.
What the hell? Like, if you're looking for a name that sends fear through enemies' hearts, change it to Canadian Goose Gang. That'll scare the fuck out of everybody.
We got Kick'em Jenny Volcano, the Mongoose Gang. Are we sure this is a country and not like a YA novel?
So the state of affairs goes on.
Mongooses are badass, though. They can kill like cobras, right? They're the ones that like eat poisonous snakes really easily.
They do attack cobras, yeah, but it's still a terrible name for your gang.
Sorry, venomous snakes. Don't email me, assholes. Venomous.
Yeah,
Fine.
venomous.
You all know what I meant. Poisonous, venomous. This is all communication words. Fuck you in advance.
So this state of affairs goes on for a
Nerd.
couple of years until March 13th of 1979, when Gary made the mistake of leaving the country long enough for Bishop to lead an armed revolution and oust his government. In a bloodless coup, Bishop ousts Gary and establishes the People's Revolutionary Government. Now, you might think it wouldn't much matter to global politics who was running a country of 90,000 people, but this was during the time of the Cold War. Bishop named his eldest son Vladimir Lenin Bishop, and Grenada is barely 1,500 miles from the U.S. coastline, which is what Americans think of as close by. Bishop runs Grenada, but then he makes the mistake of the American people electing Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, a lot of countries full of brown people made that mistake.
Oh man, the world of Jimmy Carter and Walter Mondale. So boring, but amazing. So much fucking better. God. That's one of those time machine moments, like John Connor's fighting cyborgs in the future to eventually deal with the Reagan thing and go back. Like that. Fix her.
Now, this is probably hard for most people in this country, or indeed the world, to believe, but there was actually a time when America wasn't at war with anybody.
What?
In fact, I know, by the time Ronald Reagan took office in 1981, it had been a half a dozen years since the U.S. had engaged in any major military operation. And the United States not using its military to kill any brown people for 6 whole years is such an odd circumstance that it literally has a name. Historians call it Vietnam Syndrome. You see, after we finally wrapped up the pointless death fest that was the Vietnam War, the American public expressed a strong public preference for peace over military action. And I swear it is no exaggeration to say that one of Ronald Reagan's main goals as president was to fix that. He was desperate to find some little country's ass he could kick so he could put an end to all that damnable peace.
Yeah, our foreign policy was basically walking down the hallway, blocking freshmen going the other way.
Okay, but what are we supposed to do with all our money, Heath? Create an educational industrial complex? You hear how stupid that sounds? It's so stupid.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. Sounds boring and amazing, like Mondale. More Jimmy Carter.
So Reagan's first effort to pick a fight in Grenada centered around the Point Salines International Airport. There was an airport on the island called the Pearls Airport, but its runway was too small to land commercial aircraft, and it was hemmed in by mountains on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other, so it couldn't be extended. So as far back as 1954, when the island was still a British colony, there were plans to build a larger airport elsewhere that could have a full-size runway. The plans were on hold for decades, but once Bishop took over, he made Point Salines a priority. If you asked him, he'd have told you it was because the only chance Grenada had at a decent economy was tourism, and the only chance they had at tourism was to have an airport that accommodate commercial jets. But if you asked the Reagan administration, it was so those damn commies could land the largest Soviet aircraft there to disperse missiles and weapons and communism.
Okay, we're focused on the airport from fucking Wings. Meanwhile, Robert Hansen at the FBI is selling the nuclear football to Russia for a 3-month lease on a BMW or whatever they gave him. We got Sun Tzu'd so fucking bad.
bad. All that. So bad.
In March of 1983, Reagan started sounding the alarm about the threat of Grenada's new airport. Reagan's doom crying got so vitriolic, in fact, that a Democratic congressman named Ron Dellums went to Grenada on a fact-finding mission, only to report that, quote, based on my personal observations, discussion, and analysis of the new international airport under construction in Grenada, it is my conclusion that this project is specifically and has always been for the purpose of economic development, and it is not for military use. It is absurd, patronizing, and totally unwarranted for the United States government to charge that this airport poses a military threat to the United States national security.
Republicans keep going after tropical places. They're going to have no place to retreat in the winter when electricity takes a shit in Texas again.
Okay, but if he didn't title that report "The Deal with Airline Food," he missed a huge opportunity.
Despite the obviously commercial nature of the airport, Reagan kept beating the drums of war about it. But a new, much shinier Casus Belli showed up in October of 83.
His name was Muhammad Ali, Tom. A little respect. Come on.
Terrible. This one started when Grenada's deputy prime minister, Bernard Cord, seized power and put Bishop under house arrest. When news gets out about that, Bishop's supporters erupt in protest, and Bishop manages to escape. Soon after, he was captured and executed by a firing squad of soldiers, along with his partner, who was the Minister of Education, and 4 other cabinet ministers and union leaders. At that point, the military realized they were the ones with the guns, so they deposed Cord, placed Governor General Paul Schoon under house arrest, and declared that they were in charge, and they would kill the fuck out of anybody who said otherwise.
Okay, so I'm assuming Ronald Reagan's about to make one of those little finger circles below the waist and then punch Grenada in the face when they look at it and blow them up or whatever.
At this point, some of the nearby Caribbean nations get a little nervous. Barbados, Jamaica, and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States appealed to the U.S. for assistance. And even though that didn't amount to a legal justification for invasion, it was all the excuse Reagan needed. Within 24 hours of the request, the U.S. military was mobilizing for the mission to invade Grenada, named, with typical American pomposity, Operation Urgent Fury.
That's what he like call shitting. Operation
That's what I
Urgent
call
Fury.
shitting. Don't you do that. Don't you take that from me.
Don't do my fun
Well,
fact thing.
We're going to make like Ronald Reagan and consult a psychic on whether or not to continue this episode, but we'll leave you with little Operation Apropos of Nothing. Mr. President, thank you for coming.
Sure thing, Chachi. Glad to be here. I hope you don't mind if I don't shake hands. I don't touch communists.
Sure. So listen, Mr. President, it's obvious that there's some unnecessary tension between our nations, and I am here to assure you
Whoa,
that
you all heard him. He's here to shoot me. Wow, this means war. Let's all get our planes and our tanks.
No. Mr. President, I assure, like make confident. That's your word. Assure,
Oh,
right?
you'll never make me a con, you red bastard.
What? No, that's not what I'm not
Oh, did
saying.
you hear that? He just called me a gnome. You'll never stand up to the might of the USA.
Mr. President, it's obvious you're trying to start a war with our nation and using any excuse to do it. This is shame on you. This is awful.
Prime Minister,
Yes, what is it?
it's just that Ron has terrible dementia.
I make a poopsie.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
We are going to invade you, though. Unrelated.
Oh, beans. When we last left off, America was basically Ben Affleck from Dazed and Confused with an F-14 for a paddle. What happened next? Did we win, Tom?
Define win. All right, so I feel like I should admit up front that I've never invaded a Caribbean nation, and I'm sure it's
Brave
much
of you.
harder than it looks. That is not even true. I'm reading this because Noah wrote it. I've invaded several Caribbean nations. When they say all-inclusive, God damn it, they better mean it next time. So, I'm going to criticize the hell out of all the shit the U.S. military managed to do wrong in their strained effort to invade an area the size of Fresno, California. But to be fair, I want to concede in advance that I would probably be even worse. at invading Grenada. I don't concede that.
Oh, don't sell yourself short, buddy. I've seen the damage you can do at an all-you-can-eat buffet.
See,
you could have.
I could crush Grenada.
All inclusive.
So keep in mind that this is all
Challenge
being
accepted. I will crush Grenada personally. I'm Tom. This is my real voice.
So keep in mind that this is all being planned at breakneck speed. Maurice Bishop was killed on October the 19th. The invitation that ostensibly prompted this came on the 22nd. The invasion happened on the 25th. And while Reagan had been talking about intervention in Grenada for at least 7 months, they hadn't gotten far enough along in the planning stages to do stuff like have good maps. Seriously, they planned this invasion using tourist maps that were one step up from placemats.
All right, we just follow the maze and communist guys at the big red X, right? Got it.
They had no topographical information. Major features were omitted. Some areas weren't drawn to scale, and newer shit like the Point Salines Airport were mostly hand-drawn onto them. And I'm not just talking about the maps they had during the planning stages. I'm talking about the maps that pilots would wind up using to drop bombs on shit.
Guys, I haven't seen a hand-drawn castle half the size of the island. You guys seen it anywhere?
This map thing is real, though. The American team was deploying from Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and they realized, like, the night before that they had no maps of Grenada.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so they had some guy drive to downtown Fayetteville near Fort Bragg and buy literally tourist maps. They had that, and they had a copy of The Economist as their entire intel for this entire mission.
All right, men, let's be careful, because apparently they've got a giant 400-foot mouse who needs help finding his cheese on their side. That's right here at the bottom, next to the fish sticks.
Now, to their credit, the U.S. did try to get some more up-to-date information before the invasion. 2 days earlier, they sent out a team of Navy SEALs on a reconnaissance mission at Point Salines, but the helicopter drop went wrong. 4 SEALs drowned right away, and the rest of the team flooded their boat trying to evade Grenadian patrols and had to abort the mission. The following day, another SEAL mission was sent out, but had to cut things short due to harsh weather. But intelligence be damned, the show must go on. So H hour for the invasion was set for 5 a.m. on October the 25th.
The SEALs got eaten by Grenadian orcas.
But before we get into the invasion itself, we need to spend a second on the disparity of force here. The U.S. would ultimately send in some 7,000 American troops, along with 300 troops from various allied nations nearby. They had 4 tanks, 3 destroyers, 2 frigates, an aircraft carrier, an ammunition ship, 27 F-14A Tomcat fighter jets, and a metric fuck ton of helicopters.
Okay, we had 7,000 troops, and we were like, you guys better give us like 300 more, because this is serious. Who gave us like 5 troops at a time from these countries?
Grenada has so few troops that the wiki comparison adds in the 3 Libyans and 14 Bulgarians that fought on their side, so America looks like less of a bully. Suffice it to say, the U.S. forces outnumber the Grenadians better than 3-1, and their side has 0 tanks, destroyers, frigates, aircraft carriers, ammunition ships, and fighter jets.
Okay, admittedly, that does sound one-sided, but you know what they did have? Maps. Maps of where they were fighting.
Now, on day 1, there were 3 main objectives. The 75th Ranger Regiment needed to capture the Point Salines Airport so they could land reinforcements on the island. The 8th Marine Regiment had to capture Pearls Airport so nobody else could land reinforcements on the island. And in addition to all that, there were about 600 American medical students attending St. George's University, and other forces were deployed to rescue them before anybody could think to make hostages out of them. There were also 3 noteworthy but more minor objectives. SEAL Team 6 was sent to capture Grenada's radio station for PSYOPs purposes. A task force set out to capture Richmond Hill Prison, where a lot of political prisoners were being held, and another SEAL team was sent to rescue Governor General Schoon, who was still under house arrest.
Okay, a lot of that makes sense, I guess. The radio station part is weird. That's a weird part of the plan. Like, we wanted everybody to really understand the economic theory behind the invasion. We were doing TED Talks on the radio.
Yeah, I mean, it helped that we had tanks and they didn't, but the real game changer, Heath, was playing Born in the USA for everybody. That's when everyone was like, fuck yeah.
What the fuck is that? Who sings Born in the USA? Like a reference to like a popular musician or something?
U.S. forces managed to capture the airports without too much resistance, but they had less luck securing the American medical students. Their maps were shit, so a ranger patrol ended up driving all over the place trying to find the campus, and along the way they were ambushed, and 4 American soldiers were killed. When they finally got to the campus, they only found 140 of the 600 plus they were looking for. And in a "your princess is in another castle" moment, the students explained that there was actually a second campus in a place called Prickly Bay. And apparently they were so frustrated by that news that they completely forgot about a squad of 11 Rangers and just left them behind when they took off. So those poor motherfuckers had to escape on a little rubber dinghy and row their way back to the nearest destroyer.
They're rowing. They look at their goofy map. Guys, we have to take a hard left when we see a gigantic sea serpent and the words, "There be monsters here."
The mission to take over radio-free Grenada wasn't exactly a resounding success. The SEALs actually captured the radio station unopposed, because why the fuck would the military be guarding the radio station? They destroyed the radio's transmitter, which seems counterproductive if your goal is to use the station for psyops, but that was the plan, apparently. As soon as armed Grenadian forces showed up, the SEALs had to haul ass out of there, and they wound up swimming back to the same destroyer as those Army Rangers that got Kevin McAllister back to college.
They're just rowing back. Dude, I can't believe they forgot about us and we had to row back to the boat. That's the worst.
You guys got a fucking boat? You seriously got a boat?
The mission to rescue Governor General Schoon was a bit more successful, but only a bit. SEALs show up to his mansion expecting to have to fight through a whole bunch of opposition forces to get to him, but they just got in there unopposed. Because the Grenadian forces realized they were coming and just said, "Okay, everybody hide until the Navy SEALs are inside the mansion. We already have under siege." So they did. And then they had the Governor General and a bunch of Navy SEALs trapped in the fucking house. Now, they would eventually get out, along with Schoon and his family, but it would take the help of a few AC-130 gunships, A-7 Corsair strike planes, and AH-1 Cobra attack helicopters. And even then, it would take them a full 24 hours.
Okay, I think they tricked us into an escape room mansion, something like an escape mansion. And I'm pretty sure all the clues are about nothing. It's just they're not related to it. Okay, it's actually pretty funny because we spend a lot of time on these clues and they don't mean anything. Send the bomb stuff, is what I'm saying. Send big bomb stuff.
I'm sorry. The helicopters and the boats and the blah, 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 they were waiting to be called on? Just passive aggressively sitting off the coast? Well, I want you to want me be in the war. Now I'll come. Yes.
But the biggest fuck up for the U.S. forces came in their raid on Richmond Hill Prison. Because their maps didn't have topographical information, they didn't realize until they got there that the prison was on a steep hill with nowhere for a helicopter to land.
What?
And because they had virtually no reconnaissance going in, they also didn't know that the prison was protected by several anti-aircraft guns.
All right, guys, I'm reading The Economist's latest issue. There's nothing about giant guns. I think we're good. We just fly right in. I think we're fine, right?
So while they're fucking around looking for a place to land, an anti-aircraft gun lands on one of the helicopters for them. The other one lands alongside it to protect the survivors, but the pilot was already dead.
That's just bad journalism. It's fine.
Sorry, guys. I thought the steep mountainside was just artistic license on that Long John Silver's menu. No, it's real. They have that.
The entire invasion was a series of deadly errors and fuck-ups. Because the maps were so shitty and inconsistent, and because the communication between the various branches of the military was so bad, more than once U.S. forces ended up calling in airstrikes on other U.S. forces. And at one point, a U.S. plane bombed a mental hospital and killed 18 civilians. With their numerical advantage, plus the fact that the opposition literally had no air force or navy whatsoever, made it all but impossible to fail. So 3 days, 19 dead American troops, 69 dead Grenadian and Cuban troops, and 24 dead civilians later, there was no more organized resistance.
And no radio. Nailed it. But here's what actually happened with the PSYOP thing. Apparently, the big PSYOP was just a leaflet that we had, and we even managed to fuck that up. It had 2 different typos on it. It said, "Citizens of Grenada, take every precaution to ensure your safety." They spelled it with an I instead of an E, like assholes. And it also said, "Do not interfere with US forces."
Interfer.
And on top of the typos, it had a confusing part that said, "Help us avoid accidentally injuring you by taking the steps on the reverse side." And I read that. I'm an idiot. So I was like, step on the bottom of the stairs? What does that even mean? How would that be safer, even if that made sense? I don't understand. It was the flip side of it was 2-sided.
Brochure. Yeah.
So what they needed actually was Clippy. So it looks like you're trying to write a PSYOP pamphlet. The legality of the invasion has been hotly debated since the day it started, but let me just say at the outset that this isn't a complicated question. A lot of very talented politicians worked really hard to try to tease some complexity out of it, but here's the standard. According to the UN Charter, member states can use military force in 2 instances. One is when they're attacked by another nation.
You heard him, everybody. Tom thinks Israel did nothing wrong.
No, I'm reading this for Noah.
Wow.
This is what Noah
Noah
quacked.
thinks Israel did nothing wrong.
The other is when it's approved by the United Nations Security Council. So the question of whether this was a violation of international law is really just a question of whether the UN Security Council approved it. And they didn't. So this was absolutely a violation of international law. And in case that wasn't clear, the UN held a vote on it and agreed that it was a violation by a margin of 108-9.
Who were those other 8? So one of the 9 was us, probably, right? Who were those other 8? They were like, yeah, that was cool. That was fucking fine.
Jamaica, Barbados, a handful of Caribbean.
Yeah, the ones that sent those 300 troops to go with our 7,000.
Of course, Reagan didn't give a fuck about international law. When asked about the UN resolution condemning him and the horse he rode in on, he just said, quote, "It didn't upset my breakfast at all," end quote. What mattered to him was how the thing played out domestically. And it turned out that after all those years of feeling like a bunch of namby-pamby losers whose military lost to the Vietnamese, the American people, by and large, really liked seeing their military kick some ass again, even if it was against the 11th smallest nation on earth, and they managed to make it look like the outcome was in doubt for a while.
Right.
Time magazine described this invasion as having broad public support. And though they didn't back that up with poll numbers, the support was at least broad enough that a lot of politicians that initially opposed the invasion were quick to reverse their position.
Hey, guys, how do we feel about our yakety sax invasion of that country that was smaller than Tampa? I'm going to say broadly approve. Okay, we broadly approve, apparently.
Stamp it. Does anybody have a fucking map, though? Yeah, we'll figure it out later. It's fine.
We'll pick up a copy of the fucking Economist.
We'll just hover over things and point at them. Of course, some American politicians joined with virtually the entire rest of the world in condemning it, including the Congressional Black Caucus, presidential candidate Jesse Jackson, and then mayor of Burlington, Vermont, Bernie Sanders, who joined more than 50,000 people in D.C. for an anti-war march a few weeks later.
Yeah, that sounds like some great people right there. But about a year later, Reagan won re-election in the largest landslide in American presidential history. So fun.
But despite Reagan's dismissive rhetoric, ultimately the U.S. did capitulate to UN demands and slunk out of the island nation, somehow simultaneously beating our chests and tucking our tails between our legs. And because Grenada is a Commonwealth nation, it actually put the UK in the awkward position of having to find an excuse not to go to war with the U.S. over it, which they were technically obligated to do. Ultimately, Margaret Thatcher supported the action in public, but private communications with Reagan that were released later showed she was furious about it. But despite what an embarrassment the operation was, both internationally and militarily, Reagan still used it to declare an end to the Vietnam syndrome. After very nearly getting their asses kicked by a country whose population at the time was rivaled by modern-day Kenosha, Wisconsin, Reagan declared that, quote, "Our days of weakness are over. Our military forces are back on their feet and standing tall," end quote. And as to the airport that ostensibly sparked Reagan's interest, well, in 2009, it was officially renamed the Maurice Bishop International Airport on what would have been his 65th birthday.
And Tom, if you'd like to summarize Noah's essay in one sentence, how would you do it?
That we all have at least one more reason to be glad we didn't go to war with Russia.
Are you ready for the quiz?
Absolutely. Wait. Quack.
Yep. There it is.
All right, Tom. Which of the following is the best video game about Ronald Reagan being a garbage human being?
Ooh.
A. President Evil. B.
That is so perfect. Amazing.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
B. Grand Theft Autocrat.
Also amazing.
C. Iran Contra.
That one was a given.
Oh,
we
no,
knew that was coming. We knew that was coming.
Or D. I killed a ton of people by ignoring AIDS because I'm a horrible person. Fucking Fortnite. Whatever.
Oh, amazing, Heath. Bravo.
Well, it's got to be D. Fortnite is the devil.
I wouldn't say that was why it's D, but yes, it was D.
Yeah. No, did I miss the? It's Fortnite.
I feel like you missed the thrust of D. D is correct. D is correct.
That's what I got out of it.
Tom, what's the best slogan for a Ronald Reagan presidency? A. A rising apartheid lifts all boats.
Oh.
B. A crack
Oh,
house
that's so
divided cannot stand against itself. C. Laughing all the way to the bankruptcy. Or D. A more perfect union buster.
Oh. I mean, but Cecil, you hit it out of the park with the first one. A rising apartheid lifts all boats.
That is
So
true.
good.
We supported
Also,
South
ketchup
Africa.
is a
The
vegetable.
wrong side of South Africa.
All right, Tom. What was the posthumous nickname for the invasion of Grenada? A. The bay of this little piggy went to market. B.
Such a stretch.
What is happening here?
Oh, they get worse.
Are we making? Why do we let him do this?
Why do we do this?
It doesn't
We
have
don't
to be a
have
pun.
Yes, it does.
I have never done
yes,
puns.
It does. No, you do the one answer joke. It's about, oh, did you like a thing? Silas, that's
We'll
yours.
come
I
up
can't
with your
do
own thing.
Mine
You can
is
just ask
Al.
questions about any.
I'll do.
You seem
I
mad.
have 4
Are you
different
mad?
characters. They all have opinions.
Do it in a
I'm
voice.
Carl the Pugga. I'll do it in a voice.
Yeah, that's
What would
automatically
Melania
funny.
Trump say
There you go.
about this? There you go. B. D minus day.
This one's
Like a
good.
bad
D
dream.
minus day is
D-minus day is
good.
okay.
D minus day is good.
That's
D
the fun.
minus day is good.
Yeah, they get worse. C. The massacre of My Lie, spelled Myle. D.
Nobody say anything when he does that one.
Operation Barbarossa.
No, that's not.
Wow.
Those aren't close. What? I don't even get it.
Do it
Really,
as
to be honest,
Carl?
even if it was Barbarossa, I still don't. I still don't get it.
I'm a Pugga Pegga
All right, D minus day was almost good.
Red
D
beard.
minus day.
Incorrect.
Oh,
Oh, Eli. Well, I don't know why you win. Someone wrote it down that you won. That's crazy.
I win. And you know what? I want Cecil to write an essay.
Fine. It will be something that you'll have to write a pun for at the end. All right. Well, for Tom,
I'm sure.
not Noah, Eli, and Heath, I'm Cecil. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week. And by then, I will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, show plug. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod. Or you can leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect us on social media, or check the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com.
It's not going to work.
And if you want to fuck Eli, you can become a $200 patron.
I'll fuck you for $200 an episode. I'll gorilla clip your dick. I will never forget.
I will underbid that. It doesn't even make sense for me to do that. $199. I would have loved somebody to say another number. It's fine.
and from there we'll take the beachfront, move up the coast, and establish ranks. Sound good, Mr. President?
I'm a choo-choo train.
Okay, I'm gonna take that as a yes.